them up over the cab. So the antenna can go over the cab, capacity hats, a whole bunch of other stuff will go with it. Because instead of using a vertical antenna and laying it over sideways, which we did at one time, we had a piece of conduit that went underneath the truck and came up by the gear shift. And we had monofilament string in that tube, in that electrical conduit, coming out of the back of the truck and up by the tailgate. And then the antenna was mounted, so that at the tip of the antenna was this monofilament, and would say, okay, and pull on the string until the knot showed up, come out of the pipe, and hanging on a little knob on the radio. And if you look, you'd see this antenna bent over, completely bent over, so that it was real low. But with the antenna bent over, we had a better signal.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Let me ask you a question. You had to build a mobile antenna, and you had to build the coils. This is fascinating to me. Where would you start? Another 12 wire, 24 meter wire? How many times would you wrap around plexiglass? What? How would you start to come up with a decent call for a specific frequency? Go ahead.
That's a tough one. I wind on PVC, close wound, which they say is not good, but I do a close wound and I scrape off the insulation off a regular 14 gauge wire and screw a whip to the top of that thing and it works. But then I got that bug catcher, I set that thing on fire and totally destroyed that. And they were using plexiglass and they were using maybe it was Lexan, I'm not sure, but they used Delron in the middle, and then they had these rods coming down. I don't know what they made those out of, but I was looking on the internet. There was a guy that shows you exactly how he makes this particular mobile antenna, which I thought was pretty good. But after I fried these things and the other one I caught on fire, I just said the heck with it. I'm going back to my original piece of 2-inch PVC with 54 turns of wire on it and the CB antenna and cut to length.
What would cause the wire to catch on fire? Being close to one another, or is it?
Well, on the top of the coil, that thing was about 8-inch across the coil. There was enough wire, and it was not close wound. It would act like a Tesla coil, and the high voltage on the top of that coil was very high, and even higher at the tip of the antenna. And what would happen is a little moisture would get on that plastic, and this thing would start a little fire. It just burn right out to the edge, and then sometimes down the coil, and it would go ziggy-zag all over the place, and it would be a brown color. But when you keyed up with 500 watts, and then you had this high voltage arcing, you could look back in the mirror and you could see the smoke pouring off this antenna. So to me, everybody bragged about the antenna. To me, that was a poor design.
Even some smoke. What correction would you have to make with that particular model so it doesn't smoke?
Well, I got out there with an electric drill and a great big drill bit, and I drilled a hole through each one of those trails in 2 or 3 places to hopefully break up the carbon trail, which seemed to work, but it just got to the point where I just took it off. I had problems. It wouldn't load on 40. Anyway, it was just a real temperamental antenna. But I figured out what the problem was and straightened everything out. But it's just not a good antenna for me. It wasn't. For the one I did.